All right, welcome back to the Conviction Fiction, the podcast where we don't just talk about life after incarceration, we reimagine it. I'm your host, Antoine Rivers. Today we're flipping the lens a little bit again. Instead of talking about what it's like to be incarcerated, we're asking, how does society see incarceration? And more importantly, how does that view impact the people who live through it? Right? Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, joining me again today is someone who brings both lived experience and deep insight, Eric McDaniel. He's an advocate, a voice for the voiceless, and a returning citizen who's been challenging perceptions every step of the way. Welcome back, Eric.
Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So, Eric, when you think about how society views incarcerated individuals, what's the first word or image that comes to mind?
Well, not just one, but miscreant. Those that are failures, from a societal standpoint. There's a lot of different connotations depending on where you at in this world and how people view inmates. Some view them as dollar signs. Some view people who are poor. Some view people who are hopeless. There's a lot of different characteristics. And I'm glad you on this subject tonight because it's a great subject to talk about how it's viewed from a social standpoint. And yourself, how do you see it?
Well, for me, 1 second. Yeah, I just think like the first word that comes to mind or the image that comes to mind when it comes to how society views incarcerated individuals, it's like some big dude in the corner with a whole bunch of snack cakes and like another dude next to him and he like hugging him or something. That's how I think. I mean, I just think that's how they view it. And it's totally not like that. You might see a scene or two like that, but I think that's how, or the image that comes to mind when I guess that's what it was. If there was an image that could depict how you think society views incarcerated individuals, what would that image look like?
Pretty much, brother standing out all buffed up on the weight pile, with the shirt off.
Yeah.
That's the image that we get.
Yeah. Also, that goes to my next question: is like, why do you think the public often equates incarceration with like moral failure or not systemic issues, but moral failure? Why do they think the incarceration is about moral failure?
A lot of times it's about the propaganda machine as far as the criminal justice system and prison population in the United States. Been fed a lot of different things. Around election time, you're going to hear a lot about penal codes and changing laws and more penalties and stuff to make people think that everybody's doing crime, when all actuality crime been down since 1950 every year. The TV series, a lot of people think the way prison is the way it is on TV. And a lot of people, without really having a understanding of the financial benefit, I want to get off into that tonight, if possible.
Okay, well, go ahead, bro. This is pretty much now. Here's what I think. I think the public equates incarceration with moral failure because it's easier than facing the truth. It's easier to believe someone deserved prison than to admit that the system is kind of rigged. I mean, if you want to go racially, economically, I think that's more important. Economically is rigged and socially is rigged. If people acknowledge the systemic issues like poverty, underfunded schools, over policing in certain communities, they put a lot of police in certain communities and less police in others. So like a traffic ticket in over police community is different than in a community that don't have police running around. And then there's also
True.
biased sentencing. So they would have to question the whole foundation of what they call justice. But pointing the finger at individual keeps everything kind of simple and comfortable. It lets society ignore its role in creating some of the conditions that lead people to prison in the first place. That's why it's so important for us, for me, to tell stories like this on the Conviction Fiction podcast, because once you humanize the people behind those statistics, the system can't hide anymore.
True. You know, it is. I like that. It's really viewed from as a necessary tool for safety. To meet the needs of the people, to keep the world safe. Um, but you really hit on some things. When I really started thinking about this, I thought about a famous quote from Marcus Garvey that says that he who doesn't understand their history is like a tree without roots. Now, I'm not trying to minimize it in any point, anybody going and harming and creating a victim or in any type of way, situation or circumstance. And one of the great things about this show is we have an opportunity to talk about healing, forgiveness, or, making uh, restitution to your community, to your victims. But tonight, when I was just thinking about this, I went back to a book I read called The New Jim Crow, and it really broke down a lot of great points about how in this country it's been one of the great financial tools that's used, especially to build the South, but all over the United States. When you really go back to after slavery, I was reading that they created these laws to incarcerate for financial gain, because after the 13th Amendment was signed, they had to figure a way to get people back on the plantations because for money issues. You bring that all the way up to the present day, nothing has really changed. They just have laws by another name. When I was looking into some of the stats, if everybody just stopped committing crimes today, then it will leave some counties and some cities bankrupt because they depend on the prison system. You think of private prisons like Core Civic CEO Group, two of the largest private prison companies, made over $4 billion combined in annual revenue, most from state and federal contracts. So it has it. There are a lot of factors in why people commit crimes that really don't get talked about. Jobs, poverty plays a great part in it,
Okay.
and through system deprivation, there are a lot of different things that come into play to allow people to make choices that normally they wouldn't if some of their situations were quite different. And in the United States, listen, we incarcerate more per capita than any country in the world. But the prison system here is top priority. Even in the state I'm in Alabama, they just built one of the nearly $2 million prisons.
Hmm.
And they mean on getting to that place to be able to fill them up. And if people can look at it from a broader perspective, that you are a dollar sign for somebody else. When you're not thinking and you allow yourself to get in a situation to be incarcerated, and the laws that were set for you to get back out, to find housing, to find a lot of things, it has created a new caste system in the United States. I know in the state of Alabama, even far as certain fundings, certain things, far as housing, far as getting food stamps, a lot of things are there because you have to check that box of an inmate. So a lot of jobs have been created. They paying prison guards more than they paying teachers. That's something to consider. But when you look at this nation's history on how the prison system has been profitable, it'll really make you scratch your head, brother.
I agree, man. Now for the media, the media has had some way of shaping the way that people understand how prison or life is, or how returning citizens are. But for the most part, for me, a common myth about incarcerated people, what are some of those myths? What are some of those myths that you feel that need to be called out?
Um, I guess people that are lazy, people that don't want to do nothing in life, negative people, angry people. I guess, those that go to prison and come out, some may deem to be insane. Those are some of the stereotypes that I can think of. But I'm gonna say that some of the best people I ever met was in prison, man. You know, some of the stereotypes that you go in from watching the television, you go in and see, some of them are true. Some of them are true, but a lot of them aren't. And having been incarcerated myself and getting out and having to deal with those stigmas, it is not an easy job. It's one that you really got to know who you are, and you got to have some wherewithal and some drive out here.
Yeah,
And so that's why I'm grateful. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the biggest myths that I think need to be called out is this idea that incarcerated people are inherently dangerous or incapable of change. That's like the one that like the biggest thing that gets on my nerve, because I mean it even came down to family. It came down to family believing that, oh yeah, he's that dangerous dude, or he's that family member that you don't need to mess with, or he's that family member that you can't trust. I think that's the biggest myth that is out there, that incarcerated people that are returning citizens, that they are still dangerous or incapable of changing. That narrative is pushed so hard. I mean, it's pushed by the media, it's pushed by the politics, it's pushed by the people. The people actually start to believe that everyone that's ever been locked up behind bars is that they are broken beyond repair. And I hate that.
True.
I really hate that, bro. They really believe that people, just because you've been locked up, I don't care how long you're there, all you gotta do is say, yeah, I did some time. Well, I did a few years. You don't, God forbid you say some years that's beyond 10 or 15 or something like that. But that's just not true. I've seen brilliance, I've seen leadership, I've seen growth inside those walls that would rival any boardroom or any college campus that you can put in front of me. People are in there writing books. People like me, people like you, people like some of the people that I have on the show. They are in there writing books. They're starting nonprofits from the inside. I have one of my friends up in New York. They are helping people start businesses from behind the walls. They're mentoring youth. Pod movement. Shout out to the pod movement and all of the things that they're doing. They're healing from trauma. And the system doesn't create monsters. The system doesn't create monsters, bro. It often houses people failed by this very same society that now is going to put a label on them. So let's just stop pretending, and that's what this show is about. We got to stop pretending that incarceration means that a person's value is erased, because it's not erased. It just means their story took a different little path, and they deserve the chance to write their next chapter when they're out.
Right. So I agree so much with that, because at the end of the day, they are someone's son, they are someone's daughter, they're someone's father. And so, for those things to always be on the forefront, they're a person, and everybody's deemed love. A lot of times, I think when you go through humbling circumstances like that, you develop a greater compassion for life, compassion for people. I'm not saying everybody. I just know that I did. Some of the things that were taken for granted before incarceration are on the forefront of our lives now. And so, some great things can come out of humbling situations. Even this podcast, this is a great thing.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that judgment doesn't end when a sentence does, right? Because what happens is that you go in the courtroom, they give you a sentence, right? You can fulfill that sentence, but your judgment can continue. That societal label, felon or ex-con or inmate or whatever they want to call you. You know, it follows J. What is it, J3? What is it, J3? It follows you like a shadow. I felt it.
True.
You try to get a
True.
job and you're automatically seen as a risk. You apply for housing and it's like you're bringing danger to the neighborhood just because you applied to live over there. Um,
Right.
Even relationships, they become harder because people look at you with hesitation. It was like I try to be upfront and honest with my wife now. And I was in the beginning, but it's almost like that hesitation. You don't want people like to judge you like that. Like
True.
your worth is still on trial if you are a returning citizen. So, can you talk to me about a time when someone made assumptions about you because of your record?
Yeah. A lot of times, man, getting out, especially that first year, even going looking for a job. I went look for a job, and it was like, well, you just got out of prison. You know, I went for an interview once, and the interview went so well. The guy was like, "Hey, let you meet the manager of the company." So I go in and meet the manager of the company, and they like, "Wow, man, you very impressive." But then when we got off into my story and incarceration, they were like, "Oh no, can't hire you." Now before, you know, even working with the sanitation department, uh, I was offered a job for a supervisor. I'm sitting there, and after we do the interview, and they like, "Look, we got you. We need you to just stay right here." So I lead the interview, and I stay behind. And it went all the way up to shaking my hand, to telling me how awesome it was going to be, the salary and everything. But because I just got out of prison, that was a problem. And so, yes, I've dealt with it numerous times, numerous times.
Yeah. So, how does that external stigma and all of that stuff, how does that affect internal healing? I'm talking about coming from a perspective of you because I have my own take on that. But like
Right.
just because of that, how people start viewing you, how does that affect you internally as you try to heal and try to get your mental health together?
Well, it does. It can drain you. I can't say that those situations didn't bother me, because they really did. You know, it's like, hey, you know, I'm good enough when you meet the person, but just because I checked the box, that was a problem. Uh, it didn't create hopelessness, but you know, that was some real feelings invoked that I wouldn't say it hurt my feelings, but just let me know what I was up against and know that I had to dig deep and keep trying. To be turned away from anything and be judged about something in the past, you know, if I fulfill my sentence and I get out, why would I still be judged on something that I already fulfilled? And so those things were pretty hard. Anybody tell you that they weren't, I think basically, bro, they lying.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, man, because I
Even in
know.
church, even in church.
Yeah, and when you go to spiritual places, they still judge you like that. Where you going to the mosque, to the church, to the temple, wherever you're going. And that's what really hit me was the emotional toll. Because here was society says, go do your time and come home and all will be better. They're like, you messed up, do your time, and then come home and everything will be better. But then they slam the door every time they get a chance to in your face, right? That
Right.
judgment becomes a second sentence. And for a lot of us, that's the one thing that really stings. I know it stung for me. It chipped away at my confidence because it kind of reinforced that lie that maybe I'm just less than everybody else. And that's what we started off with the first question I asked you, why society makes it a moral thing. Because even after you do your time, you can come home and they will think that you are less than, that you are just morally incapable of changing your ways and that you are just inherently dangerous, right? So it becomes a moral thing after the sentence.
It really does. You know, it's creating a new caste system. You know, us in the South, and we, you know, we really can identify with what they talk about caste system. hadn't been so much in our generation, but the generations before us, we're reaping the benefits of a lot of work they put in for civil rights and human rights in certain areas. And so when I started looking into some of the data about society and the prison systems I spoke a little bit about before, you know, everything was designed. When I was looking at the stats, that 2/3 people on repeat, like most people in the prison system are not there on a new charge, but they there because of some type of violation. You know, and a lot of those violations was just people trying to survive, brother. You know, to get out and already be in the rears, having to pay restitution, having to pay fines, having to pay parole officers, having to get adequate housing, adequate transportation. So, you know, you're really fighting an uphill battle. And a lot of things are designed for it to be that way. When I started looking at some of the data on uh, the, the county jails, city jails, even in this town, you might have read it before. They had this thing called welfare fund. So it was profitable to keep people coming back and putting them on community corrections and continue violating them, or small violations to keep people in, because from commissary all the way to the phone system, all the way to the visitation yard, you know, all that was big money. I mean, big money. And this
Yeah.
town here, one of the sheriffs had like, I think he got like in federal and state money to feed the inmates for like $30,000 to $40,000, and he paid $500 and bought a tractor trailer truck worth of corn dogs. And so the people in the county jail, when I was in there, we was eating two corn dogs for breakfast, two corn dogs for lunch, and two corn dogs for dinner. Now, what wound up happening is somebody filed a lawsuit, and he didn't want to return the money. It was over $35,000. So that's happened 3 times in the city I'm in. They've been exploiting the money, and so it's profitable through this mountain that I say you have to climb when you get out. For those that fall back in the trap, you know, it's set up and designed that way.
Yeah. And it's really
Believe it or
sad,
not.
bro, because like I said, it chips away at your confidence. You coming home and you're thinking like, okay, I got a chance. I mean, you go through programs, they say like just stick to it. And I think at the base of those programs, they basically encourage you to, you know, it's gonna be for the programs that I've been in and from the mentors that I've had, they say it's gonna be tough. They told me it was
Right.
gonna be tough. They told me that people are going to still think that you're less than, because they done gave you your sentence. You serve your sentence, but you're still less than. But the truth is, we're not broken, bro. We're just boxed in
True.
by a system that keeps trying to define us by our past instead of our potential. And that weight of judgment is heavy. But here's the thing, we're not just here to talk about the problem. We're here to reframe it for those people that
Right.
don't understand exactly what's going on. That's what the podcast is about. We're here to reframe it, to change the narrative. I think that's what we talk about all the time, changing
Right.
the narrative. Because despite the barriers, people are out here rebuilding, healing, and doing just that, changing the narrative. So we're going to shift gears a little bit here, Eric. I want to talk about what it means to reframe the story society tells about incarceration, and more importantly, what we can do to write a new one. So let's go ahead and get into that. What does
You talk about,
justice look? Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. No, you go ahead, brother. You said, what is justice?
What does justice look like to you beyond punishment? What is justice?
Justice look to me, I would say, giving me a fair opportunity to live out what you said you sent me for. You said that, hey, I'm going to incarcerate you to rehabilitate you to get back out to be a functional person in society. Then give me those opportunities. Uh, you know, give me the same opportunities you're giving Donald Trump. You you know, to have the opportunity to get out and to be able to uh, function in every aspect of life, social, economic, uh, you know, to be viewed as a person who has fulfilled their debt to society. to be viewed as a human being, and not uh, a label that maybe years ago, we all not the same person that we used to be. Allow people to be able to grow and evolve in life.
What is justice? And you were given a excellent explanation of justice, and that's what I want to kind of piggyback off of, because justice for me, there was a crime committed, right? Whether I'm on the one side of it or I'm on the other side of it, it was a crime committed. True justice for me is to not only see that, it should be some type of punishment, but at the same time, for the victim to recognize that, hey, it's a bigger issue. It's more than just somebody just, I don't know, whatever the case may be, robbing you or victimizing you. There's a system behind it, and it's very important, because on this show, I don't never think it's okay to not give, everyone's justice impacted. Just because like we were in prison, I don't want to make the show seem like, okay, well, we are pro convict, right? It was an incident. It changed lives on both sides of the coin. There are both sides that happen. And so true justice for me is being able to recognize that, yeah, on both sides, something happened, and on both sides, lives were changed. True justice is when people on both sides of the coin are okay, and that they've healed, and that they are really ready to move on from whatever the situation was.
True. I agree.
Yeah.
And putting that first and foremost. And the next thing of it is, if you are given a sentence and you are allowed to come back into society, then give me those things that allow me to function well in society. You can't say, hey, I'm going to lock you up and get out, and then I'm going to make it rougher than what it's supposed to be when you get out. That's how you have recidivism being so high. Not necessarily new cases, but just people losing that hopelessness. And I thank God, because there are a lot of avenues. There are public outcry as far as justice reform. There are avenues when a person gets out to have mentorship. There are avenues to get clothing and things like that. So, one has to really seek those things out and really assemble itself a good team around them. Because if not, it's easy to get in despair and get hopeless. Because like we said before, it's not an easy journey, but it's necessary. And not only is it necessary, it's beneficial.
I agree, man. I definitely agree with that. I had some more questions for you, because here's the thing. I think when people, and I've been looking at like the analytics and people who listen to the show. I had one person that come in it just the other day, and it was like, well, you seem like you're pro this or pro that. No, I'm not. I believe that both sides of crime were impacted, right? And for me, true justice means that, we have healed on one side, and we have healed on the other also. That's all I say. I like the equality of it. But when I was growing up, it was supposed to be like Lady Justice. It was a scale,
right?
It was a scale, yeah. And she kind of balanced it all out. And so, when it comes to the Conviction Fiction podcast and what we talk about on this show, we're not saying like one side weighs more than the other. We're saying like, okay, let's figure out like how we got to this place anyway, right? And then if we can figure out how we got to that place anyway, we can chart a path so people don't have to go through that same thing. Because like I said, we have people on here that are doing great things out in the community, right? For people that at one time to be banes of the community, or like the menaces to society, to be on here to talk about how, oh yeah, we're making sure people have vocational training. We're making sure these kids have places to go after school. We're making sure that, we're teaching a kid how to tie a tie. Like his dad might be gone, but we're going to teach him through our organization how to tie a tie. Not just a regular tie, but a bow tie. That's very important for me.
Mm-hmm.
And before we dive deeper into that, I just want to take a second to shout out all the organizations and people who continue to rock with the Conviction Fiction and push this work forward. Much love to the folks like Beyond the Change, Dream Builders Foundation, AP Rose Entertainment, The Queenables, Marriott, Teens on Point. One more question. There's just so many to name. All those people that are out there making a difference out there. Y'all are the heartbeat of this moment, and this platform exists because of you. This episode, like all of them, is for the ones who refuse to be defined by a system and are out here rewriting their story every single day. And that's some powerful stuff, man, because reframing the narrative isn't just about words, it's about action.
And it's about a story of redemption. And that's the beautiful part of it. It's the seeds you sow in the valley be the fruit you eat on the mountaintop. And I'm saying sometimes coming out of the valley, a lot of us weren't just incarcerated or put in prison. We really were set in a place where God could really be able to deal with us, man. To heal some dark places and allow us to be able to see things in a different manner. So there are some great things, and I salute all my brothers and sisters who've gotten out and to continue to strive and move forward in life and break barriers. Is so much needed because of all of the negative connotations through music, TV, and movies that we see about those that have been to prison and those that standing up and being pillars of their community and beacons of hope. So I salute all of you. Coming out of some of those situations create a greater compassion. When you look down upon, it's pretty hard for you to look down on others. And a lot of times going through some of those humbling situations create a greater need. For me, in outreach, but also now looking into being part of prison reform in some capacity to help be able to just be a voice. I was invited when I was in North Carolina to speak before the legislature. I haven't been since I've been back here to be able to share my story. But like you said, create a new narrative to allow others to be able to see that, change is possible. The redemption story is one that's celebrated in all other facets of life when people go through humbling circumstances. So that's why I salute my brothers, because that's a powerful story. And having been through it myself, I know it's not an easy one, but it's a much needed one.
Yeah. That's some powerful stuff that you just said, man, because that's what we try to do. And I appreciate you coming on and being a faithful contributor to this platform, because reframing that narrative isn't just about words, it's about action. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They hear the truth, they might even agree with it, but then they ask, well, what can I actually do? So let's talk about that. I want to give another shout out to Pod Movement. I work with them. Octavius, just so many people to name over there. Mama P and all these other folks that I've been blessed to be in the area of. Christopher Willers, that he was on the show last week with the Life Unit. These people are out here actually making a change, and for me to be even around these game changers, I sometimes I think I'm not even doing enough, but they allow me to peep into their world and help me with my own personal struggles. They help me. So let's just talk about that. Let's talk about solutions, about the real steps towards change. So, Eric, in your experience, what are some practical ways people, whether they're part of the system, in the community, or they just hold jobs, or just listening right now, how can someone help break down the stigma and support returning citizens in meaningful ways?
Well, first and foremost, just being able to receive others just with compassion as being a human being um, on a personal level. Um, on jobs, giving others second chances, giving others another opportunity. For those that are church organizations, what I do is I do new beginnings. I did outreach as far as GED classes and job training. But recently now, on New Beginning is really reaching out to brothers and giving them healthy advice and being an ear for those that need somebody to talk to. Hand out a lot of literature about this process that they're going through, really about renewing their mind and about obtaining inner peace. There are a lot of organizations, and due to the internet, man, there are a lot of good reading. This podcast, for one, there are other avenues that people can have the opportunity to reach out and get something positive in the midst of, um, coming from incarceration or just hitting a low point in life after incarceration. There are a lot of avenues out here. You have to seek those things out. And
Yeah.
I would just really want others to understand that, in society, there's a great need, to help assist those. I'm not saying seek them out, but, whatever the situation may cause, when you come in contact with somebody, just allowing them to understand that they're a human being and they are worthy of love and respect and another opportunity. That is so needed out here.
Yeah, and there, are, like you said, there are plenty programs. There are plenty of programs that actually work in helping people to reintegrate. We try to highlight those. We talk about the Dream Builders Foundation. We talk about Beyond the Chains. We talk about Teens on Point. We talk about One More Question. These are all organizations that are dedicated to helping people. The Life Unit, of course, they are leaders in making sure people are successfully reintegrating after such, wherever they've been. Because breaking down the stigma starts with seeing us as people first. We got to see ourselves as people, not our past, not our charges, not our mistakes. If you're listening, don't think that I am just saying, hey, it's all about the ex-con. No. If you're listening right now, one of the most powerful things you can do is just change the conversation. Just stop repeating the same old stereotypes. They just want to get something for free. They just think, oh, it's their fault. Like they're not responsible. They don't think anything it's not their fault. Right? Call it out when someone says once a criminal, always a criminal. That kind of thinking keeps people in a box. On a practical level, support returning citizens, hire them, mentor them, give them access to real opportunity, because what you don't know is that we have been taken away from society because of a mistake or because of what we thought was the cool thing to do for years upon years of our life, just separated from society. Just go on YouTube. All those things that support your belief in what a criminal is or what jail is like and incarceration, go look at those things. But guess what? We finished our sentences. We came home and now we're trying to make a difference. So you need to give them access to real opportunity. And if you're in a position of influence, whether that's in business, media, or education, use it to amplify the stories of transformation, not just the trauma, because that's what we're trying to dispel, the trauma part of it, right? You guys,
Right.
we went through it and lived through it, right? But you guys that are on the outside, we are trying to make sure that you know that that's not the entire story. We're people too, right? And
Right.
most of us at the same time, like we made mistakes. Now I'm not. We had Chris Willis on last week, and he was talking about like the mental health part of it. I encourage everyone, if you've been incarcerated, about to get out, or anything like that, go visit a therapist. Get some mental health advice. Get some mental health counseling, because what you've been through, it's really not normal, especially if you're trying to come out here in society. You can't live and have those same belief systems that you built up in there after you've done a couple of years in prison. Um, I'll say, if you've been in like 2 years, 3 years, God forbid, 15, 20 years, it's a little bit different out here. It's a little bit different because at the end of the day, the stigma will break when people stop distancing themselves and start standing with us. We're not asking for pity. I'm not looking for pity. We're asking for a partnership in building something better. That's all we want. And that's what this
Right.
show is about. What do you think about that, Eric?
I think you hit it on the head. It's much needed for those in whatever capacity that you have an opportunity to open yourself up to allow others to be able to have a second chance or another chance to succeed in life. That's so important. I want to give a personal shout out to Neighbor to Neighbor in Raleigh, North Carolina. Also, Another Chance Ministries had an opportunity to be a part of and witness those that uh, not only created opportunities, but it really inspired others to see beyond their present situation. And those are two places that I really want in my life. They allow me to be able to really see God's love in a greater way, and just from being a human being, those that open their hearts. And so there's a lot of people doing a lot of positive things. I just glad that you chose this topic because it's one that's much needed.
Hold on.
Those
I
that
didn't choose this topic. You chose this topic.
I chose the top. I ran the topic by you, but look, you have to sign off on it.
This guy,
Listen,
man. I tell you,
you had to sign off. Yeah,
I'm gonna
listen.
ride with it.
Yeah, well, I ain't know. But the good thing about it is, it's something that needs to be really discussed because a
Mhm.
lot of people don't know. A lot of people judge it by the TV, and even looking at the analytics on it, looking at our nation's history. When we really talk about how the monetary value that they put on incarceration, which creates those mountains when people get ready to get out and things that they have to deal with. Now, the good thing about it is we living at a time where, if you decide, hey, whatever come my way, I'm gonna press forward. Then there are opportunities that you can be able to look up and reach out to be able to help you. For those that uh, have I would say a still prison mindset, getting out and just feeling like you can just do it all on your own and not willing to change up anything, you're destined to return. And so, for my brothers and sisters that are getting out or those that are in the struggle right now, reach out, reach out. There are opportunities out here. Um, the conversation, reach out to Conviction Fiction. This brother here know what he talking about. But the mental aspect, as far as mental health, man, that is so deep because not only are we dealing with that for those that are incarcerated or just getting from incarceration, but just people in general. I don't know about in Atlanta, but
Yeah,
they are
it's pretty
not.
bad, especially like
What
nowadays.
I see, there are not enough
Addiction.
facilities, and there's not enough public outcry for it. Anytime you can see people laying out, and I don't know about you, but maybe 3 weeks ago, it was a guy who had a mental episode and wound up getting killed in the county jail. And so that situation um, by officers, and so that situation is a situation where people really need to delve into the mental health aspect because
Yeah.
especially since COVID, man, it has skyrocketed. And to my brothers who are getting out, listen here. Your health is your wealth, but your mental capacity is going to dictate whether you move forward or whether you stay stagnated. And so when the brother mentioned your mental health, man, learning to create boundaries, learning to reach out, learning to associate yourselves with positive things, learning to love yourself and take 1 hour a day and just write out goals or just uh, work towards mental reps or the things that you want to do in life. You have to see it before you can do it. And so a lot of this dealing with mental health for those that are getting out of prison, it takes work. It takes work, but it's worth it.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree, man. Eric, as always, man, I appreciate you for pulling up and keeping it real. Your voice doesn't, you don't just share the experience. You know, you reclaim it, redefine it, and remind us that there's power in truth. To everyone listening, let this episode be your reminder that how we view incarceration says more about us as a society than it does about the people who live through incarceration. It's time we shift from judgment to justice, true justice. And if you don't know how I feel about justice, go back and listen to this episode or previous episode so you understand what I think justice is. And that's from the stereotypes to the real stories that we cover here on the Conviction Fiction. If this conversation moved you, challenged you, or taught you something, tell a friend to tell a friend. Share the episode, keep the dialogue going, and help us keep building. Because it's more than what you think. I mean, especially for certain communities. I'm not going to make it a racial thing or anything like that. I'm not going to make it an economic thing, but there are certain communities that are affected more by incarceration and just being justice impacted than others. And this is our community. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on social media at the Conviction Fiction. We're here to change the narrative, and we cannot, I promise you, we cannot do it without you. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.